so happy we alive.
I've been using drugs for 50 years now. I've used alcohol, which I no longer use, and tobacco, which I no longer use, and cocaine, which I no longer use, and psychedelics, which I no longer use, but would consider if someone wants to lay some on it. And most consistently over this period, marijuana. And the only drugs to which I attribute in part some of the actions in my life which I regret are alcohol and cocaine, which I managed to get myself into trouble with. All of these drugs have their upsides, and indeed tobacco even has its upside, and they all can be abused, of course. Even Twinkies can be abused. Some of you may remember the Twinkie defense, the fellow who murdered Harry Milk and claimed Twinkies made him do it. I write poems, and my career as a poet perhaps is not a recommendation for drug use, since I produce a book about only once every 20 years. My current manuscript is called The Old Pothead Poems, The Old Pothead Poems, and I just got fired by my second agent, who said she thought it was the best title she had heard in 10 years, and she loved the poems, but she didn't think she could handle it. I wonder why. I also serve as professor of language and literature at what I like to call the CIA's Technical Institute, the Rochester Institute of Technology. We're essentially a training ground for middle management and technical people for the corporations, and to a very large extent for the intelligence agencies, since we're the leading school of imaging science in the world. And we had to fire a president and a chairman of the board of trustees a few years ago because the CIA was taking over the whole campus. It was getting out of hand. But they're creeping back in, don't worry. The College of Liberal Arts, where I teach, I forgot. College of Liberal Arts, where I teach, or try to teach, I teach poetry, and people pretty much let me do whatever I want because they don't think poetry is important. And to a certain extent I serve as window dressing or justification for the other activities of the Rochester Institute of Technology. In R.H. Tawney's immortal phrase, the liberal arts professors in the capitalist power structure are the chaplains on the pirate ship. And we had in our college, we went through one of these, our university, we went through one of these corporate self-reflection routines that they invent nowadays. And we developed a mission statement. And on it there was a list of goals. And these goals were such things as we were to teach the students critical thinking, appreciation of a wide range of forms of cultural expression, understanding of historical and social dynamics or processes, communication skills, and it seems to me that these are the very sorts of learnings that marijuana smoking enhances or encourages or makes easier to achieve. I'm not going to discuss the process of how marijuana works for a writer. I think Floyd did it as well as it can be done. And I refer you to our website for a fuller exposition by Floyd of the psychological and epistemological actions of marijuana in the writing process. I do want to stress, I think, a couple of strategic points, if I may. I think Jay specifically, and many of us by implication, have articulated the importance of coming out publicly, coming out of the smoking closet. And I think, I wish I could share Jay's optimism about the end of prohibition. I don't share it. Did you see, what's his name, Hatch, Senator Hatch? They ran the PBS hot documentary last week. And Hatch got up there and he said, pot farmers, quote, they're killing our children, close quote. So I wish I could share Jay's optimism. But I think we have to take our courage in our hands and out ourselves. And we need to, very much as Barbara Ehrenreich stressed in the opening address, and some others have of this conference, put our struggle within a wider context. We have to form both on a theoretical and a practical basis coalitions with other struggles for rights and against the oppressive mechanisms of the current system. In the past, when I've attended movement conferences, they've been in church basements mostly. And often in the historically resistant churches, the same churches that struggled indeed for abolition and for women's rights. Right? In fact, even the same printing presses. We were having a nuclear freeze demonstration on the Boston Common. I'm no good on chronology, maybe 12 years ago. And one of the presses that was used was a cold type letterpress in one of those churches that had also produced posters for abolition meetings and for women's rights meetings. And I feel that we're not going to make as much progress as we need to until we form coalitions with the other movements with which we are in basic agreement, and other movements for liberation and of the individual's rights. And there are so many people with very distinguished positions who are pot smokers. I was in my office. I have an office at the Technical University of Crete in Kounoupia-Dana in Crete in the summer, with a very good internet connection. And I needed the Latin text of a poem by Horace. And so I looked on the internet for it, and I found a very interesting home page that a certain gentleman maintained that had a good deal of stuff, that poetry, very cunningly chosen. And I wrote him by email, and I asked him, and he had his resume, he had his CV, he had his curriculum vitae up on the website. And this gentleman was the founder and for many years the administrator of one of the best known grant-giving programs in this country that annually distributes many millions of dollars. And I emailed him, I said, gee, judging from kind of poems and the way you handle them, you must be a pot smoker.